Welcome to Mind Matters, and thank you for joining Dan Ploger and myself, John Krotek. This podcast is where we discuss the critical social, economic, and spiritual issues that affect all of us. We, the people, are in a battle against the forces of entropy, forces that are hell-bent on gaining power for personal reasons, forces hell-bent on destroying the concepts of freedom and individual thought, forces which don't benefit the social order. Thank you again. Those who are listening and watching Dan and I today, you see Giorgia Meloni, the newly elected by the people, I will add, the Italian people, as the new prime minister of the country of Italy. And I wanted to, I think it's an important episode. Well, they're all important, we think, but I wanted to preface the beginning of this with just a little bit of background, and then we'll get into the conversation. This is going to take a minute or two, but for those of you who don't really know her, I want you to get a sense of what this woman and this new prime minister stands for. And I take a lot of my information from a speech that she gave at the 13th World Congress of Families in Verona, Italy, in 2020. And I think it's important. There were thousands in attendance. And she had some really interesting things to say, and then we'll talk about the response that she's been getting from all over the world and a lot of different interesting circles. So she started out in Verona saying that the powers that be want to destroy the family, they want to eliminate God, and they want to bring down national borders in order to create the perfect consumer. I'll just leave it at that. Think about that for a second. And she says, you know, those who oppose us, they tell us that it's scandalous for people to defend the natural family and family. They say that it's scandalous to want to place a correct value on human life. They say that it's scandalous for us to support freedom in education. And they say that it's scandalous for us to say no to gender ideology. And those who want to censor us are not enlightened, though they claim to be. While we talk about what we can do to help families, they curse us. She says that abortion destroys life and is degrading and abusive to women. She says that where every choice you make has consequences, that people need to accept responsibility for the choices they make. Wow, imagine that. Personal responsibility. She says that she rejects a society where every desire of an individual becomes a right, that every whim becomes a right, where people have no responsibilities whatsoever, only rights. So she poses some questions. She asks, is it normal or even civilized for society to spend more energy and resources on trying to find quick and easy ways to get rid of human life, even encouraging it with destruction? Is it normal or civilized? And then she asks, she goes a little further, she asks, why is the family an enemy? Why is the family so frightening? And the prime minister says that it's because the family defines us. The family is our own identity. So she says everything that defines us is now an enemy for those who would like us to no longer have an identity and to simply be perfect consumer slaves. And she says, so the powers that be attack national identity. They attack religious identity. They attack gender identity. And they attack family identity, that we must be citizen X, gender X, parent number one, parent number two, and a number, right? She says when people become only numbers, we could say when we, the people, become only numbers, with our identity or roots taken away, we become the slaves only at the mercy of the financial speculators. We become the perfect consumer without any personal identity. That's why she says that her party inspires fear. And the Italian voters made their selection. They obviously don't want to become a number. They obviously value the family and national borders. They respect the life of a human being, these voters in Italy. They defend God, family, and country, and most of all, they defend freedom, individual freedom. She made a quote or said a quote from Chesterton that says, "Fires will be kindled to testify that 2 and 2 makes 4. Swords will be drawn to prove that leaves are green in summer." Commonsensical, right? So the Italian people vote, which is what people in civilized countries do. They vote for who they would like to lead them. And for her beliefs, she's being called crazy, evil, dangerous, a radical, a neo-fascist, and a far-right extremist. And this isn't just one media outlet. This is widespread and it's global. That I guess to believe in God, to believe in family, to believe in the sanctity of life, and to have protected national borders is somehow evil is to me ludicrous at best. And to me, I would reverse it and I would say that anybody that censors people for those beliefs are the ones that we need to look out for. So sorry for the long introduction and preface, but I think it's an understatement to say that we are in a global ideological battle, and prime ministers and people like Giorgia Meloni are an anathema to their hold on power and control. And we are right in the midst of it, Dan. There's something sweeping the planet, has been going on for a while, more so because of the lockdowns and the power grabs by these powers that be. So anyhow, let me turn it over to you. And what are your thoughts on that subject?
Well, having a brother that has lived in Italy for the last 30 years, uh, congratulations, Greg. You're moving in the right direction. Um, the, the war is an ideological war, and it's about anybody. I won't say that. If you've read much, you know that the intent is to develop a loyalty towards an ideology, and that ideology is not religion. The ideology is the Marxist tyrannical control that they seek, and it's about control and it's about power. So any ties you have to any organization or any ideology, these ties are instantly to be destroyed and taken away from you. So you're left with only one acceptable group to be within, and that's the group think of the Marxist ideologues, and that's what we're facing. destroy the family, destroy the connection the individual has with any organization or group, whether it's a country, whether it's a sex, whether it's a race, to point these out and to provide an alternative for people to look towards when they look for guidance in their everyday decision making. So this is, congratulations to the people of Italy. The entire focus is away from the individual and it's towards the collective. And so anything that can take away anything that the individual owns, with the exception of an ideology towards the government or the ruling class, this is to be destroyed, and that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny, great points that you make. It's not funny, it's humorless actually. But when you think about this labeling and this name calling and this cancel culture, if you will, it's flat out, it's not a new world order, it's an old world order, and it's flat out communism, socialism, fascism, all balled up into one. And if anybody understands propaganda or how they, it's all out there, that you attack and you accuse those who threaten your power base with the same things that you're doing. So when somebody calls her a fascist or a neo whatever, they're the ones that are actually that. It's a bait and switch.
Of course, Antifa. What do you think Antifa stands for? It, by definition, it stands for anti-fascism, but it's not. It's pro-fascism. So it's pro destroy the structure of society and create some sort of other form of rule that they desire, and it's it's pretty obvious. But I defy you or anybody, whenever you hear somebody call a fascist, I defy you to define that. I have searched, and I'm sure you have, and many other people, what is the current definition of fascism? You won't find a definition. You might as well say the bad guy or Mr. Boo, to make us afraid of this thing. Fascism was a form of government that was instituted by Mussolini and also by Spain as a means of government to have the corporations in concert with the government run things. It's pretty much what we have right now. But fascism is just a boo word.
It's the parallels are extraordinary, and if you do understand history and the way power and control works, it is obvious and you can see it. This woman had a child out of wedlock and she wanted to work even while she was pregnant, and she caught flack for it, and she was told she needs to get the benefits from the state, and she didn't want any of that. She said, I'm responsible enough to handle the consequences of my own actions. We talk about responsibility, and she asked for nothing from the government. She made a choice to have that child, and she asked for nothing. But yet we have hordes and hordes and hordes and hordes of people who make decisions in their lives, and they expect the state or the collective to take care of them. It's madness. And I would think that with all the history that's out there, if you just gave this subject a little due diligence, like you just said, it's so obvious. The writing is on the wall. And I say to people, if you want to exercise the truest freedom, the ability to critically think, the ability to use logic and reason, some common sense, Dan, which, I look at some of these news outlets that are supposed to be giving us the news, and all they are is spewing propaganda and more hate. And they are the exact antithesis of sound journalism. And it's shocking to see it on such a global scale now because of the modern digital age.
Yeah, it is. It is a shock, and the amount of misinformation that they are feeding. Yeah, the line. What's the line between journalism and propaganda? That's pretty obvious. And the journalists think that we don't notice. The fact checker, for instance, for CNN, who's a young
Oh
fellow,
my
looks like an
gosh.
MBA, recent MBA graduate, and who's our CNN's fact checker, declared that the border is not open. Uh, this is it's nothing other than propaganda. So these news outlets are propaganda sources, and it's very important that the American people and understand this, that what we're being fed is propaganda to support a particular power structure that somebody has in mind, and
It's
pretty blatant, and it's pretty. It really surprises me that a person like that could sit in front of a camera and say the things they're saying, that the leaves in summer are not green, and say it with a straight face and an authoritative tone, that we're supposed to listen to this and just put it in our memory banks, because you're told a lie often enough, you begin to believe it. That's what they believe. And it's pretty incredible how the power structures that exist have misjudged the people they supposedly uh, guide. I'll say guide instead of rule. Uh, it's pretty amazing how out of touch they are. It's very amazing uh, how the focus is away from the individual and towards the collective. There's this cloud idea of some world government will tear down the borders and unite everybody. If you stop and critically think about that, what kind of sense does that make? That doesn't even make sense. It's not even a possibility unless it's forced by threat of death, and which has happened before. Stalin's he racked up 26 million of such instances. That's a tough one. I sure hate to have to answer for 26 million lives on my deathbed.
what a character understatement. But even at its very core, at the base of a sustainable society, or at the base of effective leadership, you have to have this 5 letter word called trust. And if you don't have trust with those who are in power or who are supposedly leading a populace, then you have a society and a country that will fail. And let me ask you this: do you trust the current government that we have in America? You don't have, I don't.
I don't either. No, they're obvious that what they do is support their own agenda, whatever that may be.
So,
It's a
we talk about trust, and that's a tough road to hoe. You can't please everybody, right? But if you're an elected official, especially in these freer countries, you would think that the people that get elected would do things to make themselves more trustworthy of the people they lead. And when I think about, and we have to pull this out of we have to talk about it. President Biden's recent speech, where he had the gloomy red behind him, and the Marines standing at attention. I have to say that particular speech, me, as a middle-aged guy, maybe a little older, it was probably the most divisive speech that I have ever heard from a president of the United States of America. I personally think it was chilling. And yeah, I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Do you think that I personally trust that leader? I would say not.
No, but what difference does trust make? Trust is a thing to have in an open society where you have freedoms. If you don't have freedoms, you don't need trust. All you got to do is obey. And that's what they're trying to do, to declare that speech was the worst speech in the history of the United States of America, period. And to stand up and call your political opponents in the other legitimate party in your two-party system to be extremists, and with the intent being that they need to be stopped. That was a chilling moment. And unfortunately, elections only come every 4 years in this country. This is where I wish we had something like maybe Britain, where we can declare a non-unified government and reorganize. But we have to go 4 years at a time. And we'll see. What I think that what we're going to see is a step up in other arenas to obfuscate the focus during the upcoming election. And I think what you're going to see is, we apparently sabotaged the Nord Stream pipeline last night. Did you hear about that?
I did hear about that. Who do you think did that?
We did. We did. Submarine would have just knocked it out, I would imagine, in 3 places. So what we're seeing now, too, is environmental warfare, which is new. We're seeing information warfare, which is new. And society doesn't know how to deal with it. When Marx wrote his books, he didn't have the tools at hand that we have today to identify every citizen, their behavior, their location, what they're thinking, what they're doing, what they're buying. He never had that ability. We do now. So maybe this is the first time that Marxism will actually come to force and work because of the tools the enemies have at their disposal.
I read an article not long ago where, there's been this huge reversal of the news that's being reported and disseminated, that we used to be able to trust the news. There were just a few networks, and we had faith because if something was erroneous or something was propaganda or an outright lie, it usually just disappeared rather quickly because people could spot it, right? And now there's dozens and dozens and dozens of media outlets, all funded by various parties for various reasons, entities. And now what we get, rather than the truth or even pieces of the truth, we get opinions that have no basis in fact. We get narratives that support ideologies, and we get outright propaganda. And you're probably right, Dan. It's probably the first time in the history of humanity that such tools have been available to those who crave power and control.
Yeah, exactly. And we, the populace of the world, are still dealing with this new thing of instant information access, immediate information access to anything. And we really don't know how to handle it. We don't know the consequences, mental illness consequences of Facebook and other social platforms like that are becoming documented. And we don't know how to deal with this yet. We haven't developed as a race of human beings. I'm speaking about the race that we all belong to.
It makes me wonder. So if I believe in God, and I believe in the family unit, and I believe in a strong national border to keep troublemakers out, or people that may not follow the rules, then I'm somehow a fascist. Really? To believe in God is fascism? That's an outright lie.
Well, another characteristic of Marxist governments is type governments, communist type governments, totalitarian, is that religion is outlawed. And the reason religion is outlawed is because the leaders want the religion to be the state. They want the people to look to the state and trust the state in whatever it says and does. That's That's the intent. So religions are outlawed. You cannot have any moral authority higher than than the highest level you're being ruled from, than your dictator, than your ideology of communism and socialism. So we're, somebody decided that the time was right and we had the tools at hand. And this is a unique opportunity in the history of mankind to take advantage and see if we can't try and make this socialist Marxist idea work again, only with new technology. And the new technology is not one that instills trust. It instills the opposite of trust. It instills distrust. It instills fear. And these are going to be the mechanisms by which you are governed, and you as an individual make your daily decisions on what you do and what you don't do, what you say and what you don't say.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. That's probably what they're thinking. But you know what? I have amazing hope. And I thank God for people like Prime Minister Meloni in Italia. And I thank God for sensible, common sense voters that saw right through the mumbo jumbo, the lies and the ideologies that lead to unsustainable countries and communities and societies. And they stepped up. I say, Viva la Italia.
Yeah, it's heartening to see these anomalies, and but I think that we're going to see a repudiation of this thinking in the United States midterm elections. But I strongly suspect that the purpose, intent of the Biden administration is to create a nuclear threat from Russia in the Ukraine, and have the populace say, "Well, gee, we can't change our leadership when we're facing nuclear war."
Well, you know what? Time will tell. Unfortunately, and many times we see the aftermath of what happens when we don't take heed. But I always believe in the precepts of the individual's rights to think and to choose. And this election in Italy is a true victory for the people. It is a repudiation of ideology. And it is the biggest victory that I've seen in a long time for the entire concept of freedom.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. It's really heartening to see these things happen, these anomalies. And hopefully we'll see a lot more anomalies in 2 months.
I hope so. Anyhow, thanks, Dan, for the conversation. And I know you got other things on your mind with the hurricane and all that. And we look forward to next week. And Godspeed, my friend, to you and your family.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Mind Matters. Use your critical thinking. Use logic and reason. Make your own determinations on the critical issues. Stay alert. Stay alive.